Welcome to Janvi's Edu channel. I am presenting you a series of wonderful topics of biology without which our life won't exist. All types of systems are important, but to continue the life we need a heart. The systems like digestive system, circulatory system, respiratory system, all these things are important, but without heart and its system we cannot even survive for a second. So heart will play a vital role in our body. So we are discussing about a circulatory system and also about the heart. But before going to the circulatory system and heart, we should know a basic concept which is involved in circulatory system, that is blood. So blood is a fluid connective tissue which we will going to talk in this slide, and it is very important to understand the blood and how the coagulation of the blood takes place and also about the blood group. So we will discuss all these things in today's video. And if you have not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to it and share it with others. Here we are talking about the contents of the video. What are the things we are going to cover? Namely, composition of the blood, coagulation of the blood, and also the blood group. We will cover all these three types of topics in today's slide. See, with the use of this diagram, I am going to explain the composition of the blood. This is the centrifuge tube. Here, when we take a blood, the blood is divided into three parts, namely the RBCs, middle white layer will be white blood cells, that is WBCs, and the yellow part will be the plasma. Okay, so it will be divided into three parts depending upon their density. One is plasma, and another one is WBC and platelets, and the third one will be RBCs. So let's talk about RBCs now. As you can see in the diagram itself, it is very clear that RBCs are red in color and they are anucleated. That means they do not contain any nucleus in them. And next thing, it contains a protein which we'll call it as a hemoglobin. So hemoglobin contains a heme group in it where it attaches with the oxygen. Heme means iron, which get attached with the oxygen and supplies the oxygenated blood to all the parts of the body. We'll discuss about the WBCs and platelets in our future slides. Let's talk about the WBC. What is this WBC? The WBCs are very important cells which play a very important role in maintaining the immunity of the body. See, there are thousands of bacteria, thousands of viruses which are present everywhere. The air we take, the air we breathe, the food we take, the water we take. There are so many bacteria and viruses which are present. But our body is resistant to few types of viruses and few bacteria. This is mainly because of the immunity which is produced in our body. When we talk about the immunity, the first thing which should come into your mind is we are talking about the white blood cells, which we will call it as a WBC. These WBCs are produced by the bone marrow by a process called as hematopoiesis. White blood cells are very important. As I said you, it maintains the immunity in the body. There are different types of white blood cells depending upon the granules which are present on them. If the granules are present, we will call it as a granular WBCs. If the granules are absent, we will call it as an agranular WBCs. But there are three types of granular WBCs. You can see in the diagram clearly first three. I mean the first, which is red in color, the second one and the third one. You can see there are small dots which are present on them. Some things look like dots on them, which we'll call it as a granules. First one, granular WBC, is a neutrophils. Next one is eosinophils. Third one is basophils. Normally, neutrophils will play a very important role neutrophils will increase in number when there is a bacteria invading our cell or a virus. When there is a virus or the bacteria which invade our cell, invade means which it enters into the cell, there will be a large production of the neutrophils, indicating that the body is responding to a particular type of virus or a bacteria. Second, the granular WBC is eosinophils, which play a very important role during the allergic symptoms. That means when there is an allergy in the body, eosinophils will be produced in the large amount. Next, when we talk about another one, it is a basophils. These three will come under granular structures. Agranular structures will be lymphocytes as well as macrophages. There are two types of lymphocytes which you have to remember, that T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes, which play a very important role, and they produce antibodies in the body. When the antibodies production will take place, the memory cell will also comes into a picture. But these things are quite high at this level. So remember, lymphocytes are always involved in fighting against the bacteria or any type of infection with the help of production of antibodies. There are two types of lymphocytes, namely T lymphocytes and the B lymphocytes. So generally we will call it as a T cell and the B cell. Next, when we talk about the macrophages, macrophages will clean up the dead cells. What are these macrophages? Macrophages are having a very beautiful role to play when it comes to the removing of the dead cells. It will have its own cell. That means through a process of phagocytosis, it will have its own cells by a process called as phagocytosis. Cell functions properly only for the 3 months and will destroyed by this macrophages. That means the macrophages will eat up the cells after completing the 3 months. If the cell completes 3 months, automatically these macrophages will eat up the cells. So monocytes clean up the dead cells. Monocytes will later convert into a macrophages and eat its own cell with the process of phagocytosis. So remember, WBCs, it fight against the immunity. There are two types, granular and agranular. Granular are of three: neutrophils, eosinophils and basophils. Each have its own role to play. Very important question, which types of cells which are produced when there is a bacterial infection? Remember, when they do a particular blood test, we can come to know whether neutrophils are more or basophils are more or eosinophils or lymphocytes are produced in a high amount. Depending upon these composition, they will come to know what type of infection is in a particular individual. So these cells will play a very, very important role when we talk about the immunity. Platelets. Platelets are formed with the help of the fragments of large cell called megakaryocytes. Platelets will mainly help in the blood clotting mechanism, that is the clotting of the blood or coagulation of the blood. What is this coagulation or clotting? When there is a tissue or the cell gets ruptured or damaged, the platelets will arrive to that center and repair it and seal it. Hence we will call it as a clotting. They undergo repeated mitotic division, but there is no cytoplasmic division, hence results in a multi-lobed nuclei. The lifespan of the platelets is only about 10 days and they get regenerated oftenly. We'll study about the coagulation. Coagulation is nothing but clotting mechanism in our later slides. See, when we talk about the blood group, there are 4 types of blood groups which are seen in an individual. One is A, one is B, and one is AB, and another one is O. Remember, A means antigen A is present on the RBC cell. B means antigen B is present. AB blood group means antigen both A and B are present. If no antigens are present, we will consider it as a O blood group. Okay, I have shown in the diagram with the 4 RBC cells, each having different types of antigen on them. The antibodies which are produced are also different. In A blood group, antibody B is produced. In the B blood group, antibody A is produced. In the AB blood group, antibody is absent, but in the O blood group, we have both the antibodies present. So, depending upon what type of antigen is present, the blood is divided into 4 groups, mainly A, B, AB, and O. And this blood group is very, very important for blood transfusion. Remember, this antigen antibody which is present in the blood will play a very important role during a blood transfusion. Okay, AB is called as a universal recipient because it can receive a blood from all the groups starting from A, B, AB, and O. And O blood group is called as universal donor because it can give a blood to all the types of blood group, that is A, B, AB, and O. So hence they are called as universal donor, and AB blood groups are called as universal recipient. So I have said already, this blood transfusion is very, very important. Why is this blood transfusion is very important? What is the necessary of studying this antigen and antibody? What is the connection between this and the blood clotting or the blood transfusion? It is very simple. See, for example, I am taking A blood group and a B blood group. Okay, the two individuals are there. In one individual, the A group is present, and another one individual, B group, is present. For an example, for an instance, here what will happen is the person cannot give a blood to the B blood group because the antibody which are produced in a B blood group are totally different from the antibodies which are present in the A blood group. So what will happen? The B group, that is the individual with the B group, will identify the A group blood as a foreign body and start producing the antibody against it. When it starts producing the antibody against the A blood group, the clotting will take place and immediately a person can die. So it's very, very important to know the blood transfusion criteria before starting the blood transfusion. So once you know the blood group of both the individuals are same, then we can go through the blood transfusion. Again, I am repeating this blood transfusion. The matching of the blood is very, very important. Otherwise, anything can happen to an individual. So, always try to understand. If you have any doubts, you can come to me. You can give a comments so that I can look into it and I can discuss with you in the upcoming slides. So another one interesting factor which is very important as an examination point of view, and also one should know about the blood, is that the RH factor which is present in the blood. What is this RH factor? You should have been very familiar with the blood group where we will say as A positive, B positive, and or we can say A negative, B negative, AB negative, anything for that matter. From where do we get this positive and negative? What is this positive and negative? This is nothing but the RH factor which is being taken from the monkeys. That means it has been transmitted or inherited from the monkeys. That is nothing but our ancestral ones. That means what? This RH factor is inherited from the monkeys to the humans. That means we all know that we are all for human beings, the ancestors are the monkeys. Okay, so this RH factor is transmitted from the monkeys. So this RH factor will also play a very, very important role when we talk about the blood. So If it is present, it's okay. If it is absent, then also it's fine. But there is one condition which is associated with this called as erythroblastosis fetalis. What is erythroblastosis? See, this is very important and most asked questions in the exam. That is frequently asked questions on this is more. See, I'm explaining you with this schematic diagram in which, for example, the mother is having the blood group as A positive. Here the positive and negative are important, not the groups of the blood. Whereas father blood group is, for example, I am taking B negative. You can take any one like O negative, or you can take AB negative, or you can take A negative also. It doesn't matter. But this negative will play a very important role to explain this erythroblastosis fetalis. And the mother's group is positive. When there is an cross and when the child is produced or the fetal is produced, the first fetal doesn't have any problem, because as we know that placenta is a very important layer which is present in the mother, which protects the child from any harm. So this, what is this placenta will not allow the mixing of the blood between the fetus and the mother. So the child or the fetal does not come into a contact of the mother's blood till the delivery. Okay, but first baby doesn't have any problem with this condition. Okay, as you all know, when there is a delivery, the mixing of the blood will automatically takes place, and there is a mixing of the A positive and B negative bloods, wherein the RH factor is totally different. In the mother, the RH factor is present, but in the father, the RH factor is totally absent. So the blood has already started producing the antibody against this RH factor. That means the father's B negative, the RH factor which is absent, it start producing the what? It start producing the antibodies against this RH factor. So what will happen when it starts producing the antibodies against this Rh negative? Again, the clotting of blood will take place, because the body doesn't know where this negative come from. We are having only positive antibodies in us. Where we get this negative one? Where is this negative Rh factor comes into a picture? So this is very interesting. See, because first child doesn't have any problem, because at the time of mixing of the blood, that is not that much antibodies which is produced, which makes the clotting of the blood. But during the second baby's, what would have happened? Already the antibodies are produced against the Rh factor. So when there is a second baby, the fetal will die due to the condition called as erythroblastosis, because there is a mixing of both the blood will takes place. That means the Rh factor which is present in the mother's blood and Rh factor which is not present in the baby, that means a fetal which has been inherited from the father. So what will happen here? The mother's body think it as a foreign body and start producing the antibody against it and destroying its own cell. Hence this is called as erythroblastosis fetalis, which is, remember, which is very important topic. Let's talk about the coagulation of blood. What is this coagulation? Coagulation is nothing but the clotting of the blood, which is very important. As I've already said, the clotting of blood will play a very important role to save the life of an individual. See how the clotting will take place. There are many factors. There are 14 factors which are involved to activate this clotting mechanism, and all these things will take place in the fraction of second. It's not very easy to activate all these 14 factors, but it will happen in a fraction of second. That is what thing we have to understand here. All these things are very important when we talk about the clotting of blood, and there are 14 factors which are involved in the clotting of the blood. See, when there is a wound or when there is an injury, first the blood will come. Correct. After sometimes, if you see that region, there will be a thick layer which is formed around the wound. This is mainly caused due to the clotting of the blood. There are three steps which are very important in the clotting mechanism. First is activation of prothrombin. Second version is the conversion of prothrombin to thrombin. The third one is conversion of fibrinogen into fibrin. All these things will take place with the help of the calcium. Hence, the one should take more amount of calcium, and we know the calcium, mainly the intake of the calcium is with the milk. So hence the calcium will play a very important role in the blood clotting mechanism. So these three steps are very important when we go with an clotting mechanism. Coagulation of blood. The activation of the clotting mechanism will take place in two steps: intrinsic factor and extrinsic factor. Here certain factors are present to activate clotting mechanism. There are 14 factors including the calcium ions. There is one disease which is associated with clotting, which we will call it as hemophilia, which is a very important examinational question. It is called as royal disease, which is seen in boys only, where there is no clotting taking place. The clotting doesn't take place in an individual. This is called as a hemophilia because one particular factor is absent that leads to an hemophilia, where the blood doesn't clot. It will always flow, and this is seen in the royal family of Victoria. Hence we will call it as a royal disease. Here, when there is an injury, remember, when there is an injury, what will happen? The cell will produce thromboplastin. A tissue will produce a thromboplastin, which is nothing but the activator for a clotting system. With a series of enzymatic reaction, the thromboplastin is produced to a thrombokinase. That is an enzyme complex. Okay, it is also will be in an inactive form, and it will be converted into an active form with the help of numerous factors. But this thrombokinase and the presence of calcium converts a prothrombin into thrombin. Another one important thing you have to know here is that heparin is always bonded with the prothrombin, hence avoiding the clotting mechanism. Heparin is called as anticoagulating agent, which will not allow the blood to clot, and it is always bonded with the prothrombin. But what will happen when there is a secretion of thromboplastin? The heparin will bind more towards this thromboplastin, leaving prothrombin. When it automatically leaves prothrombin in the presence of calcium and thrombokinase, the prothrombin converts itself into a thrombin and giving the third signal for the cell to produce a. This will in turn result in the soluble fibrinogen to convert into an insoluble fibrin in the presence of thrombin and calcium. Network of thread which is produced, which converts itself into a clot. See, first is injured cell to produce a thromboplastin. Second one, conversion of prothrombin to thrombin, where his heparin anticoagulating agent will play a very important role in the presence of calcium and thrombokinase. Third one is the conversion of soluble fibrinogen into insoluble fibrin, where network of thread are produced, which converts itself into a clot with the help of the again a factor thrombin and also the calcium ions. So with this we can easily understand the calcium will play a very important role in bringing the clotting mechanism with the other different factors. Let's start about the recap of this video. We have learned about the composition of the blood, like the blood contains RBC, WBC and platelets and plasma. Then we have studied about the blood group, different types of blood group, namely AB and O, and what type of antigen and antibodies are present in them. We have also studied about the Rh factor, which is inherited from monkeys. If it is present, we will call it as Rh positive. If it is absent, we will call it as Rh negative. Based on this, we have also studied one disorder or disease which is associated with this. We'll call it as erythroblastophetalysis. Next we have talked about the coagulation of the blood or clotting of the blood, where we have taken the three factors which will initiate the clotting mechanism. Then we have also given one disease name which we'll call it as hemophilia, which is associated with the clotting of blood. Thank you.